When my sister called me that morning, I thought she was joking. Her voice sounded calm, almost casual, the way people sound when they're telling you something ordinary. But the words she said didn't feel ordinary at all. "Mom signed the house over to me yesterday," she said. "It's done." For a moment I didn't understand what she meant. "What house?" I asked. "The house," she repeated. "The one we grew up in." I remember standing there in my kitchen holding the phone, staring at the coffee machine like it had suddenly started speaking a language I didn't understand. Our house. The one my parents bought when I was 6 years old. The one where every Christmas morning happened. Every birthday dinner. Every loud family argument that eventually turned into laughter. That house. "You're joking," I said finally. "I'm not," my sister replied. And then she added something that made my stomach twist. "Mom said it's only fair." My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 42 years old, and until that moment I thought I understood my family. Apparently I didn't. My sister Rachel had always been the favorite. No one ever said it out loud, of course. Families rarely do. But everyone could see it. Rachel was the charming one. The one who always knew how to say the right thing at the right moment. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with 5 new friends. I was different. Quiet. Practical. The one who fixed things when they broke and paid bills on time. Growing up, Rachel got the attention. I got responsibility. At the time, I didn't resent it. I thought that was just how families worked. But after that phone call, I began remembering things differently. Our father died 9 years ago. It was sudden. A heart attack that came without warning. One day he was mowing the lawn. The next day the ambulance lights were flashing in our driveway. After the funeral, everything in our family shifted. Mom tried to stay strong, but anyone who had known her before could see the difference. She became quieter, more uncertain. That's when I started visiting more often. At first it was just to help with repairs around the house. Dad had always handled those things, and suddenly the responsibility fell to someone else. I fixed the leaking sink, replaced the broken fence panel in the backyard, installed new lights in the hallway. It felt natural, like I was simply continuing what my father would have done. Rachel, on the other hand, visited less frequently. She lived 2 hours away, and always seemed to have something important happening in her life. New job, new relationship, new plans. Mom never complained about it. She always defended Rachel. "She's busy," Mom would say. "Her life is complicated right now." I believed her. Until that morning phone call. After I hung up, I drove straight to Mom's house. I didn't call ahead. I didn't want Rachel there to explain things away before I had a chance to hear the truth myself. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it always had. Same brick walls. Same old oak tree in the front yard. Same crooked mailbox my father had promised to fix for 15 years. For a moment I almost convinced myself Rachel had misunderstood something. Then Mom opened the door. And the look on her face told me everything. We sat at the kitchen table. The same one where my parents had eaten dinner together every night for 40 years. Mom folded her hands together nervously. "I was going to tell you," she said. "Rachel said you already know," I replied. She nodded slowly. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything I had experienced in years. Finally, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since the phone call. "Why?" Mom looked down at the table. "Rachel needs the help," she said quietly. That explanation might have made sense if Rachel's life had been falling apart. But it wasn't. Rachel worked in marketing and earned more money than I did. She lived in a modern apartment downtown and drove a car that cost more than my entire annual mortgage payment. The truth was simpler. Rachel wanted the house, and Mom had given it to her. Over the next few days I learned the details. Rachel had visited Mom the previous week with a lawyer. They explained that transferring ownership now would simplify estate planning and avoid complications later. The paperwork was signed that same afternoon. Just like that, the house was no longer Mom's. And it definitely wasn't mine. It belonged to Rachel. I wish I could say I handled the situation calmly. But the truth is I was angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes into shouting. The quiet kind. The kind that settles in your chest and stays there. For years I had been the one taking care of the house. The one fixing problems. The one making sure Mom had everything she needed. Rachel had visited maybe 4 times a year. And somehow she ended up owning everything. 2 weeks later, Rachel invited me to dinner. I almost didn't go. But curiosity eventually won. Her new house was larger than I expected. Modern glass windows. Open floor plan. Expensive furniture. When I arrived, she greeted me with the same warm smile she had used her entire life. "Daniel," she said. "You look tense." I didn't bother pretending otherwise. "You took the house," I said. Rachel sighed. "It's not like that." Then she added something that made my hands tighten around the chair. "Mom wanted me to have it." The conversation that followed lasted nearly 2 hours. Rachel explained everything in calm, reasonable language. She talked about long-term planning, financial stability, protecting family assets. Listening to her, you might have believed the whole arrangement had been carefully designed to benefit everyone. But there was one detail she hadn't considered. 6 months earlier, I had done something Rachel didn't know about. After Dad died, Mom had struggled with managing her finances. So one afternoon we had visited her bank together. The manager recommended adding my name as a secondary trustee on several of her accounts. Just as a precaution. At the time, it seemed like a boring administrative detail. But that detail changed everything. Because the bank accounts connected to those documents included the one that had paid for the house. 2 days after my dinner with Rachel, I met with a lawyer. Not Rachel's lawyer. My own. We reviewed every document connected to the house transfer. Every signature. Every financial record. And eventually the lawyer looked up at me with an expression I won't forget. "Your sister may have made a mistake," he said. Rachel had transferred the property title. But she had overlooked a clause tied to the original purchase agreement. Because part of the house payment came from a joint trust connected to my name. And legally, that meant the transfer wasn't valid without my consent. 3 weeks later, Rachel received a letter from my lawyer. The house transfer had been formally challenged. And unless a new agreement was reached, the entire process would be reversed. Rachel called me that night. For the first time in her life, she sounded unsure of herself. "What do you want?" she asked. The truth surprised even me. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want money. I wanted something far simpler. Fairness. 2 months later, the house ownership was rewritten. Not Rachel's. Not mine. Mom kept it in her name. Exactly where it should have stayed from the beginning. Rachel never apologized directly. But something about our relationship changed. For the first time in our lives, she understood something important. Just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they aren't paying attention. And sometimes the person everyone underestimates is the one who sees the whole story the clearest. If there's a lesson in all of this, it isn't about property, or money, or legal documents. It's about something much simpler. Families often assume roles for each other. The responsible one, the favorite one, the quiet one. But roles aren't permanent. And sometimes the moment someone tries to rewrite the story is the moment the quiet one finally decides to speak.